Micro.
For European and Security Policy, Minister Werner Fasselabend, dear Director, Mr. Michael Zinkanell-Süss, dear Professor Dr. Bağcı, dear Dr. Mehdi Hamidi-Faal, dear Dr. Gülsüm Akbulut, dear Ambassador Dr. Klaus Wölfer, dear Excellencies here in the room, dear students, dear ladies and gentlemen, also online, welcome. I'm particularly happy to welcome you to tonight's discussion on the war on Iran, a firestorm for the Middle East, here at the Diplomatische Akademie Wien. It's always a big pleasure for us to cooperate with the Austrian Institute for European and Security Policy. The Middle East region is of particular importance, and since the operations Roaring Lion, as it's called in Israel, or Epic Fury in the USA started, the region is once again in the epicenter of geopolitics. Just a little information for you. We have students here at the DA from all over the world, and so we have also students from the region. We have 2 students this year from Iran, we have 1 student from Israel, 2 students from Syria, 3 from Turkey. And of course we have many alumni from the region, be it from Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates or Yemen. And of course we have regularly also participants from the region that participate in our executive training programs. Our geopolitical situation is, as we know, in very turbulent times. The Russian war against Ukraine, the situation in Gaza, and now again the Middle East, with a war that will probably take several more weeks. The permanent aspiration of Iran to acquire nuclear weapons and the permanent threat of missiles attacks coming from Iran towards Israel have been mentioned as reasons for this war. But of course, after the question some of us ask ourselves as well is the goal not also a regime change in Iran? And what about the repercussions of the war for the wider region? So I would like to thank particularly Minister Fasselabend for moderating this discussion this evening, and of course also thank our distinguished speakers who have each an enormous expertise on the Middle East. I wish you all an interesting evening. Thank you very much.
Excellencies, dear ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, dear students, it's also my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's event. And with this particular interesting times, with these particular challenging times that we're facing today, 10 days since the Israeli and US-American attack on Iran, which already now can be said with quite certainty will change the dynamics and the situation in the region in the long term, although the short-term implications are yet to be seen due to the dynamic situation, due to the situation that changes basically on a daily, if not hourly basis. The attacks have indeed spread already across the entire region. We have not only seen US, American, and Israeli attacks on Iran, we have seen the repercussions that Martina Schubert just mentioned on the entire region. I think 13 countries in the region are already directly or indirectly affected by the Iranian attacks, by the attacks of not only the Iranian regime, but also the proxies in the region, first and foremost also the Hezbollah militia from Lebanon. And the region itself is not only affected, also the wider region is affected. We have also seen attacks on Cyprus, a EU member state, the first time that an EU member state was directly attacked in such a conventional wartime arena. The British air base in the south of Cyprus, Akrotiri, was attacked. And also the NATO member state, Turkey, was attacked. I think even today, Iranian missiles were intercepted by NATO forces positioned in Turkey. So we see the potential this conflict has of spreading not only within the region, but also within the larger region, with, of course, the question how the European Union, as common European security and defense union, or also NATO, will be further drawn into this conflict. So we see how important these dynamics are, and we have, of course, a lot of questions that we have to ask ourselves with regards to the current developments. I think one of the most important things that I'd like to point out at this stage is that we as the international community, we as also the community here in Vienna, as also one of the hubs for diplomacy, should do everything in our power that Iran is not going to be a second Libya or a second Afghanistan in the long-term future. So with having that said, I wish you all an insightful and inspiring discussion. Special thanks to all the expert speakers that are here with us tonight to share their knowledge and wisdom with us. And I'd like to hand over to Mr. Fastelabend and his introductory words before we go in the panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Also a very warm welcome from my side to everybody here in this room, former ministers, ambassadors, generals, and leaders in different functions. Great pleasure to have you here. We are organizing this event in addition to all the media everywhere. I mean, you can listen to and hear everyday comments. But I think there is one thing that might be quite important. One is Austria's or Vienna's history in this case, and the other one is also the question of maybe not only going into an actual analysis, but to go into deeper analysis. And therefore, it's really a great pleasure for me to have such an outstanding panel over here. And I start with Professor Hüseyin Bağcı. He is also in Austria already, for some people quite well known, because he was in connection with us already for quite some years. He used to be the president of the Turkish Foreign Policy Institute, and he still is the professor for international relations at the Middle East Technical University. And he certainly is the best known commentator on Turkish media. Anytime you would walk through the streets in Ankara or in Istanbul, or I don't know, also in Kurdistan, people would greet him and know him. It's a great pleasure to have you here. At the other hand, we also have, of course, we had a big interest to have somebody directly coming from Iran, a young man born in Iran who came with the age of 2 years to Austria. He became a journalist. For some time, he was the private secretary of the former state president, Kirchschläger, but he also worked for Wiener Zeitung, APA, and other magazines, and so on. It's a great pleasure to have you here, because you also had the privilege, to make many interviews with politicians and statesmen in Iran, and therefore knows a little bit what they are thinking and how they probably would look at the situation now. Next is, of course, Dr. Gülsüm Akbulut, an outstanding expert on economic development, especially on economic relations between states and the consequences. She made her doctorate in Istanbul or in Ankara, but also studied in Brussels. She also used to work in Brussels because she was the economic advisor for Turkey in the relation with European Union. And she is also the co-founder and CEO of Ankunda, the Ankara Global Advisory Group. Warm welcome to you. And last but not least is Botschafter Dr. Klaus Wölfer. He had a diplomatic career within our Ministry for Foreign Affairs in Austria, but he also was a Director General, Sektionschef at the Chancellery in Austria, not for diplomatic relations, but for art. And he served as within his diplomatic career in different places, especially in the Balkans, in Belgrade, in Rome, but also in Turkey as ambassador, and in Singapore and other places. He also used to be the deputy political director in the ministry. Insofar, we really can be happy to have you here. Before we start our panel discussion, I would like to make a very short presentation on just show a few facts and maybe also give a short contribution to the question, is it possible also to make some predictions or not? I have to change over here in order to show the pictures. I make it very quickly. Yeah, what you can see here is the title of an event we made only a few weeks after the so-called 12 Days War. This was at the beginning of September, and the question was, how would the Middle East develop further on? And I would like to show it to you because I think it's relevant, not only to comment on the day we are experiencing now, but also in the longer run. And if I go to the next picture, this is just a presentation that in Middle East there is not only the rivalry between Israel and Iran, but we have 4 big regional powers. It is Israel, Iran, it's also Turkey, and rising power, Saudi Arabia. Insofar, this probably what is happening now is only part of the game. The next chapter will follow automatically. The next picture shows the US military presence in the Middle East. We showed this already, as I said before. What you can see here is the importance of the Middle East for the United States. Only in the Gulf region, there are around about 30,000 American soldiers and many places where they have to act. And insofar, it also was clear when there would be an outbreak of a war, probably the United States would participate in some way, whatever it was. I do not want to go into more details, maybe just a question. At the moment, there are three carriers already in the region, and the third one is more or less making its way into the region, in addition to Gerald Ford and the Lincoln. Also, the George Bush is on the way to go into the Middle East. The next one is what we predicted that would happen sooner or later in the Middle East. What we predicted was that the game was not over, but that we expected that there would come some destabilization on ethnic grounds. What you can see here is a map of the ethnic relations in the Middle East. I think it is easy, I mean, to see Turkey. It is colored in this orange way. Then you have at the right hand Iran, at the border or in between, especially the Kurdish section, and maybe very far away in the east, Baluchistan, because those two parts, on the one hand, Kurdistan, and at the other hand, Baluchistan, certainly are of highest strategic importance for what is going on. Why did we predict that this would come? Due to the overall development, it was for us foreseeable, and I just wanted also to present it because it shall show or give an example that you are able to predict some developments even half a year or years before they really would come. When I tell this, you have to be aware that this is the big question at the moment, whether Kurdish militias would enter Iran, and one also could see following the whole crisis that the whole planning of the war went into this direction. So what I'm showing here is just the Kurdish settlements in the Middle East. You can see it. It's especially in 4 countries. It's Turkey with the biggest minority. All those numbers are just numbers. Probably the real numbers are even much higher. You can say round about between 30 and 40 million Kurdish people existing. Biggest majority in Turkey, second Iran, third is Iraq, and fourth is Syria. But all of the 4 countries are inflicted by the outbreak of a Kurdish question, for sure. And of course, if you look through this map, one could maybe also consider whether, okay, why not shape a Kurdish state in this region? Maybe it would make sense. Probably it would have been possible until the period immediately after World War II. Now this is a question that only can bring destabilization. Why? May I show it? Because you have those small red rings. They show where many Kurdish people are living outside the traditional Kurdish territories. And we also have more or less talked about the percentage of the numbers within the states, which means that in Turkey around about 40% of the Kurdish population are not living in eastern Anatolia, but in Istanbul, in Ankara, in Izmir, in Adana, in big cities. You have a similar picture in Iraq, where only between 35 and 40% are living in the 3 districts that are Kurdish. In Syria, it's around about 30%, and in Iran, 20 to 25%. Yeah, and now if you look to what has happened or what is happening at the moment, you can see, the blue circles, they show where the major bombardments from Israeli and American side happened, and you can see very clear this concentration in this close within this, let me say, green region, and the green region means this is the Kurdish region. So far, from the beginning, there was a clear concentration on Kurdistan, which meant or which should prepare an invasion from outside and also more or less take military action in order to prepare unrest or whatever within the country. Okay? Why this will bring quite some danger also for the region or for neighboring regions. This would be the country, you know, or this would be the list of the 4 countries that are touched immediately by more or less an actualization of Kurdish nationalism and, in consequence, fragmentation of the states. And if you take Baluchistan at the east, in addition to it, you can see it would reach really from the Balkans to the Indus Valley, a huge region that would be inflicted by the actual situation. Last picture, what does it mean? For Europe, it does mean not only that we have this crisis zone in the east of our continent, and of course, big crisis zone also in Northern Africa, but that even the glimpse of stability that we have experienced in Turkey could be endangered in the future if the question would come up the table. Okay, this may be just in order to give a few information about the real situation. Yeah. And maybe one additional short remark from my side. Why is it so interesting from Austrian side or from the place of Vienna? If you go back just 10 years ago, we had a deal between Iran, the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, plus Germany, plus EU, and also control by AIEA. This was more or less a deal that was made in Geneva and in Vienna, but it was cancelled by a man with the name of Donald Trump when he became the American president. So far, there was a solution, there was a deal, and I always called it the biggest defeat of diplomacy I have experienced in my lifetime, that it was cancelled when all the permanent members were behind it, of course, with the danger that this probably would not be the end. And insofar, I think we also should learn when diplomacy is not only failing, but when it is more or less cancelled by somebody, then the danger will come. It will not be the end of the process, but a new process will start, and this will be a little bit different. And with these words, I now want to come to our panel, and I would say, okay, chief commentator of Turkish television and radio and so on, Professor, how do you see the situation now? What is how do you see the status quo? And what could be the coming steps?
First of all, good evening. It is a great pleasure to be here again. I think it's functioning. Yeah. And it's always nice to be here to contribute for these intellectual discussions, but also learn a lot from here by the audience and by the participants. My view, I start from the last one. The Kurds will be the losers once again. There will be no Kurdistan as a state in this part of the world in the foreseeable future. The reason is very simple, because the countries which we have there and have Kurds, they have different political systems. In Turkey, for example, we do not consider the Kurds as minority. Minorities in Turkey, according to Lausanne Treaty, are the Christians. None of the Turkish Muslim groups coming from the Ottoman Empire can be attributed as a minority. So this is the Western perception. I understand Karl May books, of course, contributed a lot. But in 1937, Turkey signed Sadabad Pact together with Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan. One of the articles of the Sadabad Pact says, if there are uprisings, Kurdish tribal uprisings, in these countries, then the signatory countries are not intervening in the domestic affairs of these countries, except Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, we don't have, at least so far, no Kurds. The second one, yes, I'm well known in Turkey, but in Turkey still we do not have Kurdistan. We call it Eastern Anatolia. It reminds me always with a discussion with my Armenian colleague. He was always talking, you say, in Western Armenia, meaning, I said, yes, Western Armenia for us, it is Eastern Anatolia. So it all depends from which perspective you look. Last week, I said in Turkish television, I repeat it here, Mr. Minister, everybody's Kurds belong to themselves. The Iranian Kurds are different than the Turkish one. The Syrian Kurds are different than the Turkish one. None of the countries, Iran, Iraq, and Syria, they have not given to the Kurds the equal status as Turkey has done it since 1923. Constitutionally speaking, everyone living in Turkey is not a Turk belonging to Turkish state. Here, maybe we have some of them coming from Turkey. They have Turkish passport, which is not the case for other countries, or they had a lot of troubles. Turkey at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, after 45 years fighting PKK terrorism, achieved a very new situation, status quo, which is terror-free Turkey. At the moment, in the Turkish parliament, we debate, we had a long discussion, they came so many times, and I told, people watch us, Tuncay Bakırhan, he is the one of the chairs with Tülay Hatimoğlu. I talked to Tuncay Bakırhan. I said, what is the situation now? He said, Hüseyin Bey, there is no return. In Turkey, it cannot give terror anymore as before. No, why? Because Turkey has experienced how to fight cross-border terrorism. Cross-border terrorism is a fact in the Middle East in all those years. Now, if the Kurds would believe that they would establish a state, the Iranians would not allow this. Forget it. Last year, I was sitting next to Arakci. We were together there. In Syria, we have a new development. This is where Turkey also contributes that the situation is going to be improved. The Israelis have supported northern Iraqi Kurds, Barzani. Barzani made, in 25th of September 2017, a referendum. He won, of course, the referendum, but my comment was before the referendum, I said, he will win the referendum, but he will be not able to declare independence. The problem now, for those people who are dealing with the region, they should listen very carefully. The problem of the Kurds in this region is they are very much squeezed between three great cultures. This is Persian culture, Arabic culture, and Turkish culture. So historically speaking, any try to establish a state there, except Mahabat, Kurdish state in 1946, it lasted a couple of months, 9 months, after the Soviets left the area. Iran was occupied by the Soviets, and then later on came the British, and then the Americans. Two books. One is Vali Nasser, you know very well. Vali Nasser's book, Iran's Grand Strategy, published just last year, is telling you the entire history, recent history of Iran. The second one, Atul Kohli, Imperialism and the Periphery. In Iran, what is going on is actually today is not only the regime. You may not forget the mullahs have been supporting in 1979, before the revolution, the groups who were against Shah. Later on, the mullahs were excluding all these Bazarganis and all these leftist, rightist groupings. It was another fight among those people who made the revolution. I think what Turkey does, Turkey is, since 1639, we have border with Iran which has never changed. There were so many world orders since then, but our Iranian border has never changed. The Chaldiran War, which is from their side they won, from Turkish side Ottomans won, and I'm talking about the Ottoman Empire, not the modern Turkish Republic. We lost, ladies and gentlemen, the Turks, we lost an empire. The countries which lose empire, Austro-Hungarian Empire is one of them, you know this trauma, it is very difficult. Today we have 26 countries in the United Nations which have been 150 years ago belonging to Ottoman territories. Amin Malouf's grandmother, which is well known in the Islamic world, Arabic world, and my grandmother have been Ottoman citizens. One was living in Lebanon, the other one living in Bulgaria. And my father's side was living in Macedonia. So I'm in Turkey, Turkish citizen, but my mother and my father born in Bulgaria and in Macedonia. The Russian general said to me, Mr. Bağcı, be happy that you lost only one empire. We lost, he said, 2 empires. This is why Vladimir Putin called in the 20th century the biggest catastrophe was the decline of Soviet Union. Now, coming back to Turkey, Turkey will have no intervention there. Turkey is having balance of power politics because we do not consider Iran as enemy. Iran is not an enemy of Turkey. Iran is a regional power having rivalry with Turkey. We respect each other a lot, despite all the different political systems which we had. But you may not forget, ladies and gentlemen, Atatürk's first visitors has been the Iranian Shah. In the 20th century, 3 countries started to modernize themselves. One, Turkey, under Kemal Atatürk, great leader. Yesterday we had Women's Day, congratulations, by the way. Atatürk was given the right to elect for the woman earlier than in Great Britain. In Great Britain, the women were carrying, are the British women less important than the Turkish one? The Atatürk's reforms changed Turkey. Iran wanted to make Turkey, make themselves like Turkey. Today, you see where they landed. And Afghanistan, I'm so sorry what happens to Afghanistan. 3 countries. Just, madam, as women, look to the woman in those 3 countries and their position. And this is something which we have to see from the modernization perspective, Mr. Minister, very important one. The Iranians, we have been together. I have been in Iran, first time in 1994 when I was young and innocent, academic, and it was Mr. Velayeti with whom I had my first conflict there because of this modernization and Central Asia issue. But what is more important here, since then, I am also the witness of the Iranian developments. In 1979, when I landed in Hanover in Germany, I was just 19 years old, going to study to Germany. And Khomeini came from Paris to Iran, together with some journalists like Hamid Malouf and also many other well-known journalists. And interesting is, from our perspective, in the Middle East, we, the Turks, we have not an easy history. Every empire has very difficult history. Now, looking, if there would be an Arab friend, they would say, you know, Professor Bağcı, you have stolen our history, which they said in the television program, because since 1517, Ottoman Empire took caliphate. It was a big mistake for the Ottoman Empire. Atatürk abolished it 3rd of March, 1924. Now the Iranians and the Turks, we see that Iran is going to have a lot of difficulties. Americans are there. Look to the name of the ships. Lincoln, Ford, name it. All the former American presidents' name having ships are there. But the Americans also make a mistake, the miscalculation. In the Middle East, ladies and gentlemen, the people are ready to die for their countries. The historical context, again, Atul Kohli's book, Imperialism and Periphery. It begins from Argentina to Vietnam, British and American imperialism. The reason is here, to my view, is not that only Iran, but to prevent that China is not getting much more stronger. My dear colleague will tell economically, definitely, and we, the Turks, we have 10 neighboring countries, 11,000-kilometer borders. Again, 10 neighboring countries, 11,000-kilometer borders. When we sleep in the night, we don't know what happens next day in our neighboring country, whether it's Syria, Iran, Iraq, Armenia, Azerbaijan, name it. Bulgaria, Romania, Ukraine, Russia. So we are like a lion, I make this comparison, springing into the, like in the circus, with a lot of fire. This is a firestorm, without burning itself. We call it realpolitik. We call it real. Yes, they can fight against each other, okay, but we just try to bring them to their mind. This is one of the biggest grand strategies of Turkey. Turkey is not security consumer country. Turkey is a security provider country. And this is maybe the classical concept of Turkish foreign policy. At the moment, when you look, with all my right for domestic critics of the government, I keep it aside, foreign policy-wise, of course, Turkey is now getting much more important through these geopolitical, geostrategic developments. Ladies and gentlemen, Chinese have a proverb. They say, you should live in interesting times. We all live now in very interesting times because the entire Middle East is cursed now. Thank you. For now. Later on, there will be second round.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving us these insights. And I think what we can learn automatically is the situation is much more complex. It's not so easy just to look at the map and to count, I don't know, minorities that do not define themselves as minorities, but as part of the state population. And at the other hand, we have to be aware, but obviously, that concepts were made on a very simple basis. There is serious reports from everywhere, or from different sources, that President Trump had personal telephone calls, not only with the Kurdish leaders, Barzani and Talabani in Iraq, but also with Hijri, who is an Iranian Kurdish man who went to Iraq. But just, if you think, that the American president is calling not only regional leaders within a medium-sized state, but even just, the leader of some militias, not at all in any official function, it shows that obviously something is going wrong.
Any call from Donald Trump is very dangerous. It is better that he's not calling. Last year in Tehran, you remember, we had a Professor Asiri from Kuwait. He said, Professor Bağcı, thanks God, Mr. Trump has not visited my country. This is Kuwait. I said, why? He said, he visited United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar, and he got $3 billion. If he would have come to us, Kuwait, then he would take another 1 billion. So now in our budget, we have $1 trillion in our budget. So it always, don't call us back, we will call you back.
Okay, no, thank you. And maybe now I would like to ask Arian-Faal. You are not only from Iranian descent, origin of your family. You made interviews, as I said, with many politicians in Iran. You know a little bit the situation. Now we have the picture that most of the Iranians outside the country, at least in Europe or in America, are very fond for revolutionary development. At the other hand, now we have the experience that very short time after not only the so-called great leader, but also 48 other people from the top of the state were executed, okay, now they chose a new leader. What is your impression on the stability, on the situation in Iran? How do you see that?
Well, good evening, dear Excellency, distinguished guests, and dear students. A pleasure, like always, to be here. And allow me, first of all, before going deep into medias res and into just point out some basics inside the Iranian population and the regime, to give you some kind of a puzzle in the meta level to be able to have a better view from outside. So first of all, we can't say anymore, we have over 193 countries in the UN, and we cannot say it's none of your business. Iran is very interesting. Why? Because as you see, you will have 3 direct impacts in your daily life. As you go into the gas station, as you will go doing groceries, as you will go paying your next bill for energy costs, as you will having a look at all over Europe about demonstrations. As we see 2 days ago, one of the free newspapers just mentioned the brutal incidents about the Iranian Shia Center in Vienna. As I was walking today from the university to come to this place, I just heard that in Germany, while there was a manifestation yesterday, a person from the Revolutionary Guards tried with a knife to attack some protesters, and the police arrested him. So we are really touched. What I want to say, first of all, we cannot say it's none of our business. The colleague mentioned Cyprus at the beginning. We have to be aware of the fact that we are part of the European Union before 28, after Brexit 27, and the border from Cyprus to Middle East is less than 100 kilometers. So we are directly confronted. It's not, before some people told me always, that's far away, that's the Middle East, so what? We live our life here. Now it's not possible to make this, separation. Secondly, I want to really focus on one very, very important thing, as we are also on live stream. I think this is very important as a journalist to underline one more time. We have to be very careful about statistics, about news, about the sources, check, double check, and, for instance, about all the microseconds that we are receiving through social media, X or whatever, new informations. Are we gonna take them as granted, Or are we gonna ask, is it true, is it not true? So is it really in times like this concerning Iran, it's for me a deep importance to underline the fact that we have to be very careful what we say, the valuable vocabulary, but also the quotes we do about numbers, about sources, about medias. If you watch the Iran crisis from European media, you're really having the feeling that you're watching a different movie when you watch the same in Russian media or Turkish media or Iranian media. So it's like you're watching two totally different movies. That's why I want to say in the meta level that we have to be aware, and especially when I mention some numbers, be always careful that they are numbers. So I give you a very simple example. If you want to check out the population, the actual population of Iran, you will find over 15 valuable numbers. Let's quote Wikipedia. In each language you find different. Today I was having a look at the side of the Interior Ministry of Iran. They're talking about 93 million people. It's a very young population. Over 60% is under 36 years old. The region of Tehran is 16 million people. Over 13 million are under 40 years old. So you must just say it's really a challenge. And some people ask themselves, how is it possible, such a young population and such an internet addicted population? Because Iranians in the whole Middle East are the most users of several apps and news.
No. We are the best.
Yeah. No, I just quote the latest economics survive. And what I want to make is the point that we have to be careful. So going into this thing, what's happening in Iran at the moment is, are people happy with what's happening or not? Can we answer this with a yes or no? We can't. Of course, I was talking to some Iranians inside, and I want to start with a metaphor. So imagine you are walking on fire or on hot stones, and at the same time, in a room, there is a window of hope. But people from up there are taking the oxygen, and the level of the room is going down and down. So what they want to tell with this metaphor is the Iranian system at the moment is very, very, very cruel for some of the population. Why? We have the crackdown of the protests, which are very brutal. We have the economical free fall. We have the protests in all the regions of Iran with anti-regime slogans. Then we had the inflation, the prices for daily goods, and of course also the sanctions and the impacts of the sanction, the military conflict, and the internal mismanagement. How can it be that a country who is number 4 in the oil and number 2 in the gas has to import and ask for gas stations? So they have the resources, but they don't have always the technology. So that's why we really have to know as of March 2026, the overwhelming majority of Iranians inside the country do not support the regime. And we can say 60 to 80% opposes the continuation of the Islamic Republic. Why? Because there is this window of hope that something will change. But we cannot be daydreaming. It's not like this. Iran is not Venezuela. And what I as a journalist learned in this last week is, after having written over 9,000 articles in the past 26 years about the Middle East and having interviewed, beside Khamenei, all of the leadership in the 25 years, I learned that how less I know due to the events in the last 10 days. So we cannot be daydreaming. It's not possible to impose and instill democracy from outside. We saw this in a lot of countries, and Iran is one more example. What was the moment of the elimination of Khamenei? Can we say this was really yes, it was a moment of joy for a lot of people. But on the other hand side, it was a short moment of joy. Then there was kind of a wake-up call that what will happen. And let's return to our metaphor. You are walking on fire. You're getting out of oxygen, and you wonder. So, first of all, they were happy about what happened from outside, from the US attacks and Israel attacks and so on. Now, they're asking a major question. And then, so what? Which options do we have? And in the second part, when we'll talk again, I want to elaborate a little bit the options. But one more thing is Mojtaba Khamenei, who was reportedly, as I talked about, fake news and not confirmed news. Today, a lot of Western media reported that he was injured. Yesterday, some media reported that he was with a private jet during the last years several times in the UK for medical treatment. So this is not yet confirmed by all the state media. But what we can say is Mr. Mojtaba Khamenei's appointment was behind the curtain a very clear statement who is really in power in Iran. Because I didn't read in any European media the real two organizations who were responsible for this election. First of all, as we spoke before with Minister Faslaben, the name Khamenei is a sign of we are going to continue, we are going to just lead the same way, and the prestige name will remain. That means the base of the Islamic Republic is still going on. That was the first message. Who were the two main organizations? The Revolutionary Guards, which have, of course, a huge impact in between the Assembly of Experts, 88 mullahs who will elect always, and they meet every year 3 times, so they have annual meetings for discussing how the leader is doing his work, and if necessary, they re-elect a new leader. And the second person, who was not mentioned in the European media, is the head of the Guardian Council, who has served since 1980. It's Mr. Ahmad Jannati, who is leading all the elections since the beginning of the Islamic Republic by pre-selecting the candidates. He was years before also Friday prayers in Tehran, and also head of the Assembly of Experts, which I mentioned now for the 88, right? And this person is 99 years old, just birthday a couple of days ago, yeah? And re-elected for 2 years. You just imagine, because of his loyal status towards the Revolutionary Guards and the hardliners. And this circle is closing when you see that Mojtaba Khamenei was heading the 2009 so-called Green Revolution protests, and he was the personal assistant to the Supreme Leader to take care of the protests. I know this very well because in this time I was doing an interview with the former head of Discernment Council, Mr. Rafsanjani, who was the only person in Iran who could meet the Supreme Leader without an appointment and without any reason. So he was number 2, because the president in Iran, this is also a big misunderstanding, I want to clarify, the president is only a microphone. So the real power in between the Iranian body, which is very special and unique, is not the president. The Supreme Leader has the last word, and we share bad experiences with Mr. Velayati. He was the first foreign minister I worked with, and he was very angry at that time when, because he was at that time the supervisor of Khamenei. I was doing an interview in 2009 with Rafsanjani, asking him if Iran is such a beautiful and fruitful country and the Islamic Republic is such a beautiful system, why every year more than 300, 400,000 people between 19 and 49 are leaving permanently Iran, and they will do a very, very nice career in, let's say, foreign countries, such as you see, Iranians are always top of the pop when it comes to some film prizes, when it comes to chemistry, biology, and no matter what. So they are part of the migrant group, Statistic Europe, they are always in the top migrant group. So what I wanted to, I asked Rafsanjani, and he said, we don't say that we are perfect. Of course, we also have lacks, and we must have a look why those people who are very intelligent are leaving permanently. That was enough to have a big, we call it now in the social media, shitstorm for me, for Mr. Rafsanjani, and of course, a certain Mojtaba Khamenei, who was at that time giving the order that foreign journalists are not allowed to do interviews with the 3 most important people in the country, the Supreme Leader, Mr. Rafsanjani, and the head of judiciary, which is also now, as you see the system, and this is again a puzzle, Mr. Ejei, who is now the head of the judiciary in Iran, is one of the key figures who is deciding behind the curtain what's going on. And with this, I close my first statement, just for you to know that we should stop to say like this, Socrates was Greek, Socrates was philosopher, all Greeks are philosophers. We have to open a little bit and try to understand the basics. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You talked about opening. I would ask whether we could open a door for a few minutes, because it's very warm inside here, and I think this would be favorable. Could somebody, yes, please. The director is the best man to organize it. Okay, thank you. Yeah, and now we come, of course, to the question, when we are analyzing it, politically, militarily, economically, how is the situation within the region, and what are the consequences for the globe on a whole? Please.
Thank you very much, and I am honored to be here and to talk to you distinguished guests. Yes, I would like to touch upon the importance of the economics, because geopolitical conflicts always have a relationship with economy. And depending on the duration of this conflict, if it longs, if it takes a long time, then we will be talking about the global recession. And this will not be a problem of only the region or Iranian, but the problem of all of the world. So when we look at the previous crisis times, the world recession times, we had 1970s oil crisis, we had 2008 a global financial crisis, COVID crisis, and now we will be talking about this third Gulf War crisis. How? This will affect the world economy in various channels. Now we are talking about the oil prices. Oil prices increased now is around $100 per barrel, but it was $60 before at the beginning of this year, and the European Union especially tried to make oil prices at around $60, because in the increase in dollar prices, oil prices will contribute to Russian economy. Now it is 100, and now we are talking about 150. So if oil prices goes up to 150, what would happen? Of course, oil and gas prices, they are all connected. If one increase, the other also. Who will gain? Who will lose? Oil and gas producers will gain, we can say, and those countries that depend on importing oil and gas will lose in this case. But interestingly, even though Gulf countries are producing oil and gas, they cannot sell it now because of the closure of Hormuz. Then what will happen to those countries, those Gulf economies? So people now are coming together trying to find a solution. It is not a problem of high oil prices, it is also the quantity. The quantity that is produced in the region, 20% of total oil consumption and 20% of total gas consumption come from this region. And the countries stopped, some of them, producing oil and gas. Iraq said that I stopped producing because they cannot store it. The storage capacity is not enough. Then they cannot, because they need to produce and they deliver it. But delivery is not possible. Qatar said that, okay, I am stopping producing natural gas, liquefied gas, and therefore, which Qatar is the number 2 after Russia in the world. So most of the countries, especially in Asian countries, China, India, Japan, South Korea, they depend on the oil and gas of these regions. So these countries now are really trying to find a solution because there is no quantity, no supply. But prices increased. So what is the solution? They are now coming together with the energy agency. They are trying to use their strategic reserve, whether they can be, they will use it or not, so we will see. So strategic reserves of the countries are becoming important now. How long they will have this strategic reserve enough for their energy need. According to some of the statistics, China is good maybe three months, okay, and Japan and Korea are not that lucky. So what will happen? There is no quantity of oil and gas that goes to those countries, and the prices are increasing. Why prices are increasing? Why? Because of perception, because of rising insurance cost. And now, from $60, before the attack, it was $72 because there were rumors about this attack because they were preparing for the attack. So from $60 per barrel, now it came to 100, 40% increase. No emerging economies that depend on energy import can assume that cost immediately. I will come to Turkish projections. We are all making our projections about $60, $65. Now it almost will double, and we don't know what will happen next. Why? This will be a global problem. Europe, when I look at the Europe gas or energy cost, it already increased more than 70%. Because Europe stopped buying from Russia, but now Russia is the winner. Because Russia can have storage and can produce and sell. So who will provide the energy need of those countries if it cannot come from the region? United States also, they are the winner. Because United States, because of the shale gas they invented in, and they are exporter now since 2015. So they are producing LNG, and this LNG can be transferred to the countries that are in need, but I am not sure whether it will be enough to cover all the need of those countries. So how long this will take time? This is very important. When the Gulf will open, will have able to sell the oil and gas. This is the question mark. If it continues, then we will talk about worldwide recession, and we will all be talking about what is wrong, after all these crises. They will not have energy resources, most of the countries. They will be suffering. Thank God we are now on the way to summer, but the industry need energy, and the energy is the largest sector. Of course, the largest one is the financial sector, but the second one is the energy sector in the world. And this is a crucial and very strategic sector for all the countries, including Turkey, including Gulf countries, including energy exporter and energy importer. So this is a very important problem, and I cannot think about that this closure will continue more than 1 month or 2 months. I cannot think about that, because strategic resource will not be enough for those countries, or United States will try to close the gap. We will see. The other problem is this region also provides fertilizer. So if fertilizer cannot be used, there would be food shortages in coming months. So because the fertilizer tankers are now stuck there, therefore we may face with food shortages. So the economic consequences of this closure, of course, I don't want to touch upon the humanitarian aspect or military aspect. I am just focusing on economic consequences. I'm sorry for that, because this is the reality, actually. I mean, we need to think about it. Okay. So what would happen to countries and who so what is the meaning of keeping at $60 if we want Russia to not earn from this development? So now Russia is producing and selling. So China, we are all looking at China. Maybe in the second round I will come to Turkish economy. China will be affected, of course, but China, they also had strategic resource. They know this development. They aware of the development beforehand, and therefore their strategic resource increased. And also they can manage it 3 months, maybe 4 months, but they will buy from Russia. Even existing situation, they are also getting their energy needs from Russia, mostly Iran, Venezuela. Now Venezuela also is not an option for them. India, Japan, South Korea, they are in very critical position. So maybe I can stop here, and then in the next turn I will talk about Turkish economy.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, and now Ambassador Wölfer.
Yeah, thank you, Madame Gülsüm. Is it working? Thank you. It was very enlightening and worrying what you said, but it shows that the crucial question actually is how long will this last? And we are here in uncharted territory. It's war. It's a war situation. Diplomacy is sort of sidelined. We're in a war situation where the first victim is, as always, is truth and clear perception of what is happening. Everybody is cheating, lying, false flag operations. We don't know. most of the politicians are killed 3 times, maybe not, we don't know. This is happening by the day, and it makes it even more difficult to see through this mist. What is clear is that over the last years and maybe even decades, there is a kind of pendulum swing from the thinking of in terms of diplomacy towards war. I mean, Clausewitz, he said, it's the prolongation, war is the prolongation of diplomacy. We are very much on the prolongation side now at the moment. As a former diplomat, I cannot help to sort of try to see also the other side, and especially in a country like here, where we're always proud of developing the principles of law from Hans Kelsen, starting from Hans Kelsen, but also the big conventions on the law conventions, diplomatic and immunities and consular immunity. Everything was sort of concocted very often with Austrians and in Austria and in Vienna. So it's a bit worrying and sad to see this pendulum swing. In recent times, Russia has resorted to war. In the meantime, a US president, he is introducing a very frank, refreshingly frank, but also very bellicist discourse and language in the Western discourse, which is kind of imitated. I mean, just to remind you of the way he speaks about Greenland, what he does in Venezuela, the doctrine, the national security strategy of the United States is very clear-cut. It's academically very lucid, and it's being put into action, into reality. The Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, U.S. Secretary, he changed the name of his ministry into War Ministry. So again, this is all very frank and transparent, but it's not really encouraging from my point of view. Yet it is not a totally new thing. We should not forget in 2001, President J.W. Bush, he rescinded on the ABM treaty, the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty. That was a very big surprise to the Russians then, and it sort of ushered in a period which is getting more and more problematic. There was the GCPOA, mentioned already, and Trump then, as president, abandoning it. The latest war in the Middle East and West Asia, as most of the people in this world would call it, it started despite the ongoing negotiations, a breach of customary law and at least of good faith, which was bitterly criticized by the Omani mediator afterwards, but which just indicates we are really in a war situation where the old rules are not existing anymore. Heads of states or de facto heads of state, like the supreme leader of Iran, are simply killed, assassinated, others abducted. I mean, it's a new brave new world, which is showing a kind of clash of civilization. It's the old world with the rules-based order, which we have come to know, and now a new one, which seemingly is necessary, or is believed to be necessary by those who exert the highest influence in this world. And we are now at this crossroads. Everything is shifting. There are glimpses of maybe a new system. There is a board of peace established for the Gaza situation. There is Abrahamic Accords, which are an effort, admittedly, of bringing peace to a wider region in an effective way, and not in the, let's say, useless way that has been tried over decades. So I'm not saying this is good or bad, it's different. And there is a change of civilizations going on. As of Iran, as for Iran, we are in a mess, that is for sure. Who will pick up the torch of international law, and when and how? This is the big question, and I leave it to that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe just a few words also to the military situation as far as I can see it, you know. Probably the situation was underestimated by the States and Israel. The fact that the bombing was successful, but that it could not change the regime, that it could not bring an overall change, and also the fact that for the first time, not only there is the so-called danger that the Iranians will run out of their missiles sooner or later, but also you could see that suddenly even the Americans are going to run out of anti-missile systems. And this will mean that, of course, the situation probably does have and will have the tendency to go into another kind of war of attrition, which means not a clear cut, not a quick finish, not a clear solution, but as we can see it, you know, nobody had expected that the war between Russia in Ukraine would last more than 4 years. It was incredible. And insofar, of course, with America, this will be different because America does have the function as world policeman. It is the number one. It has an order function or something like that. And insofar, they also will not be able or to afford a very long time war, because this would mean that they would lose capabilities for the next crisis. And the next crisis will come, of course. And insofar, I would say we probably are in sort of a pre-decisive phase at the moment. Most expectations were the war will last a week or maybe 2 weeks, and then the game will be over. The way it is looking at the moment, I mean, I'm quoting State Secretary of the States, Marco Rubio, it could last several more weeks, which means also the states do not see a quick end at the moment. And in such a moment, of course, also United States will have to consider what to do, whether to finish or how to finish, and so on. This is the situation we have to be aware. And now I just try to come back and let us give very short statements, because maybe we also should give you the opportunity to ask a few questions, and you can answer it immediately thereafter. Okay, so because you know we have an internal rule, our usual goal is around about 1.5 hours, but at the longest 2 hours, and therefore we should try, you know, not to be too long. And my first question is, and I guess we could go deeper into the whole question immediately. When there are questions coming from your side, I have a first, yeah, in the second row. Please just wait for the micro. Okay.
Yes.
Please, just your name and very short, not a long comments, only for the panel, please.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, my name
short.
is Jeffrey Manners.
Yeah.
No comments, just the question. And it's addressed to anyone or everyone on the panel who feels best can address it. As far as the regional impact, I'm curious as to what the feeling is for the stability of some of the neighboring states that have a majority or significant plurality of Shias in their population. I think in particular of Iraq, which could be viewed as stability threatened in that the largest portion of the population is Shia there. And then too, you have Bahrain as well, where I believe the majority of the population is Shia. How are the Shia populations reacting to the current developments? Are they sympathetic to Iran? What disruptions or unrest could this create?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Kriegbaum.
Krauchenberg Institute for the Danube region. I have a question concerning Straits of Hormuz, when and if they could be opened. On the one side, it is said that rocket launchers, etc., were destroyed. However, there are the Shahid drones, and they could come from anywhere. There are some teams from Ukraine now coming to the Gulf states concerning drone defense. However, could that be enough for the nearer future? Does it take a lot of time? Are there any news about this? And maybe the other thing is about the population in Iran. We have watched so many people getting killed, thousands, maybe 30,000 in the last, in January. Now I wonder, the people are unarmed, and how could they be armed? Otherwise there is no way that there would be a sort of uprising in Iran. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. A third one, Fehlinger, and then we...
Herzlichen Dank. My name is Günther Fehlinger. I fully endorse the regime change and freedom for Iran. My question to the Iranian representative, given the big...
I'm not Iranian representative, I'm an independent journalist.
Yeah, with the background. Because you were quite positive towards freedom for the Iranians, I understand you. So I'm very much also for freedom of Iran. My question is, given the big disparity of firepower between the American Navy and the Iranians, how long do you think it will take for the full liberation to be implemented?
Okay, thank you. Now we go to the panel, and please, yeah. Also, I mean, some other comment to the general situation.
In his book, William Burns, the last CIA director, the back channel. The book is back channel. Sorry. Sorry. Now, I repeat again. The book by William Burns, the last CIA director, the first diplomat, by the way, to become CIA director, he wrote the book, The Back Channel. In this book, he is giving a discussion with James Baker. James Baker is flying over the entire Middle East, and he said, if there is an incarnation come back to the world after the death, he said, I will become a Middle East analyst. And his diplomat said, Mr. Minister, why, Secretary? He said, because there will be always problems. Anyone who is dealing with the Middle East as an expert, enough jobs as now. Academically speaking, I'm very selfish, and I thank to Mr. Donald Trump a lot, because also Diplomatische Akademie in Vienna, also my university, we will have a lot of discussions about the New World Order. How is it possible that a man alone can change the entire existing system since 1945? Is it Genghis Khan? Is it Ottoman Sultan Süleyman, the lawmaker? Or is it the Russian emperor or British queen or king? Name it. Unique, first time, the entire world is watching how the law, human rights, international law, democracy, name it, is now out of discussion. And Francis Fukuyama, colleague of us, he is the first and the last one ever, probably, who made always wrong statements, but became rich. He said, the end of the history, sold millions, I read also, and now he was telling us again that Donald Trump is the best one. In America, we have the balance of power structure, etc. Is there any power structure in America now? So we are all very much surprised, but there is one thing, maybe somebody can translate it better than I do. In Turkish, we have a proverb which says, evdeki hesap çarşıya uymaz. It means what you plan at your home does not reflect the reality in the market. The Americans make a big strategic mistake. To run the Iran or the Middle East, you have to put soldiers there. Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan costed $7 trillion to Americans, and none of the American presidents could land during the day to those countries. They always land in the night. My personal view, academic perspective is, it will last probably longer than we anticipate. Economically, politically, militarily, many things will be tested now. We are on the edge of a new era of the international politics, international law, and international economic discussions. I wish you all the best for the future.
Okay. Yeah.
Iranians say yes.
So, first of all, I wrote so many articles about human rights, and I was not in Iran since a couple of years, because if I would go, first thing they did last time, they took my passport at the airport, and they ordered me to the intelligence ministry, and they said, we just wanted you to know that we know that you wrote in English, French, and German 9,000 articles about executions of people, about this and that. So I'm far away from protecting, I'm trying to open the eyes that people don't think that it's so easy to freeze. I give you a very simple example of today, very actual example. The head of judiciary, which I was mentioning before, said today, if people in Europe, Iranians, are protesting, we will freeze the property in Iran. We will take everything. So if you have a house in Iran, you're Iranian in Europe, and you say, this regime is bad, you had a house. Very easy. Second, we have the football team of Iranians in Australia. 5 of them, they were fleeing from the team, seeking asylum with the Australian government. So these are all parts of the puzzle that we have, of course, a regime of huge oppression, repression, and the shortage of basic goods. It's not only anymore about politics. People always think, do people like the Islamic Republic or no? You have to ask yourself the question otherwise, is, can you survive or not? When you have 400% more expensive goods, like daily goods like rice, bread, oil. Some Iranian families, they used to eat once per month meat. Now they eat all 3 months meat, and this is not an exception. So the question is not how do we manage this? The question is, and the next question is, what about the protests? The question was about they are not armed. I want to say something about this as well. Many Iranians are willing to accept civilian death and destruction, and it means topping their despised theocracy regime, but there is a big but. If at the end of the day, there is a result. That's why I had this metaphor. What happens if all this was for nothing, like the revolution of Neda Sultan, like the revolution of Mahsa Amini, like the revolution of 2009? So they are really hurt by having this all ever coming all the time back, this experience that they fight for something, and at the end of the day, we have the proof that the Iranian system, and this was the big surprise, I think, for Donald Trump, was not at all based on just Khamenei. They had it's like a Switzerland watch. You have the systems, and if one is not working, the others will compensate, and it will work in the whole. It shows that the Iranian system is, for 47 years, if you count from 1979 till 2026, in such a very strict and unique model with the power, and because also speaking of the military, must say very clearly that the Revolutionary Guards are not at all responsible to answer any Iranian political body what they do. They are totally different. So the Iranian army is a peanut army compared to the Revolutionary Guards, who have the permission of the supreme leader and his office to act as they want, without any permission. Outside of Iran, as you see, they try to disturb the protests all over Europe. as we see also in Vienna, what will have huge consequences now, because from now on all the demonstrations in Vienna concerning Iran will have another security concept, and be inside when people see the situation that it's possible that with Mr. Khamenei, maybe Moshtaba will also be removed by Trump or by Netanyahu, but with the hardliners still in power, it's too much to die and too less to survive. So the Iranians are sick of this equal situation that, okay, if help comes from outside, we want something, an outcome. If the help is not coming, what's gonna be at the end of the day? But even some people say regime change is not our first aim, we will see. And then we have at the end of the day the situation that we have an unstable economical situation. We have the Middle East, which is really now in trouble. And of course, that's why Oman, as a mediator, as the mediator, is at the moment very, very hard working to try to build some bridges between the parties. And what else, and this is my last remark, allow me, Minister Faslam, to mention also Vienna. What we see as a result, Europe and Vienna was basically the place where the JCPOA took place, and I was at that time responsible for Iran and the Middle East in the Austria press agency, and I interviewed a certain group of foreign ministers after the deals. It was on the day of the French Revolution, 14th of July 2015, and the head of the Iranian delegation was Mr. Araghchi, deputy foreign minister at that time. And here we see Europe was relevant. Now, all the last 10 conflicts, if you have a look at the world map, we have 133 countries. Over approximately 50 countries are somehow involved in a conflict. All the last 10 conflicts, the Europeans were not on the table. If you see Ukraine and Russia, if you see Pakistan and India, where Oman was the mediator, if you see now Gaza and Israel and the West Bank, if you see Iran. So before, the head of European policy, like someone like Dame Ashton, someone like Federica Mogherini, they had a voice. So when Ashton was going to Russia, Putin gave for her a state banquet. When Mr. So-called Josep Borrell, journalists called him Pinocchio because he was a little bit boring, came to Lavrov's press conference, he got 5 minutes, and at the same time, in the ears, he got the information that 3 European diplomats are expelled during the same moment he's doing the press conference. So this is the position of Europe at the moment. So, and as you speak to Iranian officials, they say, do we need Europe for a solution? Not at all. We speak about silent post with Oman and the US. If they want to talk, yes. If not, not. What I want to say is we are facing a geostrategical change that someone is giving the path. Europe is like an appendix, following, somehow criticizing and asking for diplomacy and asking for restrictions and for silence. But at the end of the day, we are witnessing a situation where the whole body of diplomacy, like UN, like the law and human rights, are totally distracted by the policy of Donald Trump.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe you say a few words for the consequence for the economic development of the neighborhood.
Yes. The financial market, this is very important for especially developing countries like Turkey. So the perception of the investors is very important. Now, what happens if there is a problem? They try to get rid of the country. They try to sell their asset. This is the portfolio asset, I mean. And then if they sell their portfolio, it means the currency of that country fluctuates, depreciates. Now, Turkey has had so many financial crises. when investors come and they bring their foreign exchange, but they may go out if there is a problem. So the risk increased now in the region. Now, therefore, one is expectations of the financial system. So what now our central bank is doing, they are dumping the foreign exchange reserves in order to stabilize our currency, which is necessary because Turkey has been implementing disinflation policy since the election in 2003. So this inflation policy is very crucial because we have the highest, one of the highest inflation rates in the world after Iran. So what will happen? Because we suffered, this inflation policy means you have to restrict monetary and fiscal expenditures. So you will not have high wages or salaries, you have to suffer a little bit. This is the bitter recipe for the countries. Now we are implementing that, and our aim is to reach one-digit level inflation rate for next year. But what will happen to our program if this event continues? It will have impact on our inflation through an energy cost, one direct cost, the other one is indirect cost, because energy is an input to most of the products, then those input costs will increase. Another thing, if central bank cannot manage to maintain our exchange rate stability, depreciation of Turkish currency will have impact on, again, inflation, because the cost of importing products will increase in this case. So what will happen? To attract Turkish lira, then their interest rate will increase. So these are all very costly for Turkish people, Turkish consumer, and Turkish investors that need to get cheap credit from the banking system. But it seems that it will not be case for a long time, or for, according to, I don't know, not long time, but maybe 2 months. But 2 months will be enough to make new calculations for the economic stability. But this is not, of course, the case for Turkey. The perception of financial system now, when we look at the old stock exchange markets, you may see that they are all red, showing the red signs, because and this will have impact on real sector after a while. So I hope this will end. Otherwise, again, we will have, not only because of the energy crisis, but because of the financial system, because of the perception, we will be living in very difficult times afterwards. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I add just, my own experience I had in Syria a few weeks ago. There's an imminent need for investment you could not imagine. The first impression I had over there was the destruction was by far bigger than anybody had expected. And of course you have also similar situation in other countries. Up to now, only more or less Syrian people came from outside and were ready to invest. But in such a situation, nobody will invest. And this certainly also will have quite some consequences for all the other countries. Once again, I want to cite, the fact that one of the most important factors for economic development is neighborhood. I very often quote, most people were absolutely surprised when Donald Trump rose the tariffs that Canada and Mexico used or are the most important trade partners for the United States. Not Great Britain, not Germany, not China, not Japan, but two, let me say, medium-sized countries. The reason behind it is that neighborhood is so important because only big companies can go overseas, but also small and medium-sized can go cross-border and make it. And insofar, of course, it certainly will have reactions for everybody or for all the other countries. So far, we certainly should come to an end. I would ask our panelists for a very few short words at the end, and maybe I start with you. And I ask the question, we're in a situation where nobody really knows what will be the outcome. Do you see, maybe if there's not a clear end by the war, that diplomacy, that European diplomacy could make any contribution for the future? What is your...
I think there could be immediately a demand for diplomacy. We cannot predict it. It can be in a month, in 2 months. It can be tomorrow. If Iran collapses or if the US president declares victory, he can decide to declare victory anytime, then you need to find the itty-gritty part and see how to disentangle the situation. And then you need intermediators, especially with the situation between US and Iran now. There is a total lack of trust and direct contact. So you need people, or you need countries like Oman, or China had brokered between Saudi Arabia and Iran in the old days. But of course, Europe is there. And a last round of talks was happening in Geneva and should have moved on a technical level to Vienna only last week. So we are, even Austria is basically there. It's the memory of GCPOA that was signed here. We have a long tradition. We are a neutral country, which is an asset in the perception of many. We have the UN here and OSCE. So it's not illogical. Maybe partnering up with others like-minded, like the Swiss, they have been doing a lot. And if you look on the horizon, even the Vatican is a formidably informed partner. They are behind the scenes, or even not behind the scenes, trying to defuse the situation between Cuba and the United States at this very moment. So these are all candidates. And of course, Turkey has been a very important mediator already in the Russia-Ukraine situation, and has the confidence of all partners. Is a NATO country, close to the United States, always on a talking basis with the Iranians, close to the Arabs. I mean, is not a bad thing. Maybe one thing comes to my mind. I don't know if it's one of those many fake news that you get all the time, but supposedly Foreign Minister Lavrov, only 2 days ago, he went out with the idea of why not have a meeting of the P5 at a high level to sort out this mess. I don't know if it's fake or if it's not. It's an interesting idea, and it's in a way in the logic of what is happening now. The big ones sort of carving up the world, and if we would have 2 Europeans on the board, it would be magic and very positive. But I don't know.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Probably one of the usual mediators, and you already mentioned Turkey, but before, you will be the last one to speak. So I would ask also if you maybe tell us a little bit what is the perspective from your point of view, from your experience.
I think at the moment. Okay, I think at the moment we have a lose-lose situation for all parties because we are in the middle of nothing, not knowing what's happening next. So what could happen? We have 4 main scenarios. The first one is a regime change. Could be, must not be, and at the moment not guaranteed. So then, depending on the upcoming events, if Mojtaba Khamenei will also be eliminated, what is the standing in between Iran, in between the regime of the hardliners? So is Iran gonna be, if there is no regime change, which would be a catastrophic fact for the country after all this suffering, if the hardliners would gain more power and would impose more oppression and repression? Option 3 would be if we have a soft Islamic Republic following the path of Trump and all of a sudden ready to negotiate whatever about what, and putting the nice face on to remain on power, which is also an option discussed in between some analysts from the Middle East studies. And option 4 is also the main element, as my colleague mentioned. How long will all this go on, especially the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, especially the attacks, and especially the capacity of the militaries, all parties. And this will also mark a main milestone for the upcoming, let's say, ways. If you're on a divide and you have to decide left or right, it's a very magical and important moment. Where do all this is gonna be stopping, and where do we have the powers on this stopping moment? So who will have the energy to be the winner out of this, if there can be a winner? And not only economically, but also politically for Iran, the question is, how will the population react, having in mind that the opposition outside is kind of some groups attached to the son of the last Shah, Mr. Pahlavi, but others, like the Mujahideen and other opposition groups, are not united. So also the question, how strong is the opposition outside Iran, and how much can we, at the day X, contribute that this country will get the chance to rebuild normal daily life after all these tortures.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Maybe?
You showed in the beginning.
Microphone?
Yeah.
You showed in the beginning that last year, 10th of September, you organized a conference here. Now we are just in the middle after 6 months. Madam, I would suggest you repeat it again in September. So then within 1 year, what happened in the Middle East and in Iran case, new strategic developments, geopolitical changes would be very interesting, definitely, even with the same team. Then I would listen also more to you. Now, the question is here, how the neighboring countries are reacting. In the Middle East, we have 3 big civilizations: Persian, Turkish, and Arabic. We have a formula in Turkey. The Arabs and the Iranians do not like the Turks. The Turks and the Iranians do not like the Arabs. Arabs and the Turks do not like the Iranians. This is a circle. Because big power status is important. We, the Turks, we are the so-called newly modified middle power. Turkey does not have nuclear power, but Turkey has a lot of experiences in the last 10 years. Turkish army is not like the German army. In order to be able to fight, you need 5 years. We are not bureaucratic army. Our army is our asset in this respect. transborder terrorism. We have the most expensive experience ever in the last 40 years. $200 billion, 60,000 people Turkey lost. We are in the position now even to teach how to fight against terrorism. Iran is, geopolitically speaking, in a very good position. If Iran would be a democratic country, it would be good for us to talk with the same language. That Iran is further on the way to Central Asia and Far East. We talk about the economic corridors. Turkey is at the moment very close to Europe, to America. Turkey and the president of Turkey is very much beloved by the president, not only the Kurdish tribal leaders. Now, the second point is here. This year we have NATO summit in Turkey, in July, in Ankara. We will welcome all of them. Now, the thing is, what the European Union is going to do, as you said. The European security is depending on 4 countries: America, Great Britain, Turkey, and Russia. And none of them are members of the European Union. This is exactly what you started to talk about, but we couldn't more. Turkish rapprochement to Europe will become more and more. Why? Because Turkey has also a flourishing defense industry. Countries of the Balkans, Central Europe, even the Polish, Portuguese, they all come to Turkey now to get certain defense systems. We, the Turks, we made a huge spring forward. Not like the Chinese. We are not the Chinese, but we know how to fight against the external threats. And Europe has to come to Turkey much more than Turkey is coming to Europe. Iran and Turkey, if there is a regime change, if Turkey and Iran are democratic countries, then the European value will increase. Then Russia will have to deal with Europe, with the European Union. We are neighbor of Russia on the Black Sea, on the Caucasus, Central Asia. I don't have time to talk more about it, but putting it in short, Turkey is the winner of this regional conflict between Ukraine and also Russia, between Iran and America. Even the Israelis, I was talking in a webinar against 5 Israelis. Jerusalem Institute for International Strategic Studies. We debated 1 hour, 30 minutes. When you talk about Turkey, you need always more time. That Israelis talk about now, after Iran, maybe Turkey would be on the target. I'm very careful now what saying this, but my message should go also to the Israelis. They may call themselves selected people by God. But if they choose Turkey as an enemy, then they make the biggest mistake. And they will not attack Turkey, not now, not in the future. Because Turkey is the only country since 1492 provided to the Jewish homeland. They will never forget this. Bibi Netanyahu is just forever there. In the long run, we are all dead. But Israel, we are the only Muslim country in 1949 recognized Israel just after 9 months of its establishment. This is unique. History comes into the picture. To read history books is not reading cookbooks. It is not. So, looking from the historical perspective, what Israel can do? Attack Turkey? For what? For what? To occupy Turkey? The Turkish military says they should come. What the Israelis do wrong is to perceive Turkey as an enemy in the future. My advice to those people who consider Turkey as an enemy, wrong. Not only because we are a member of NATO, Not because we are negotiating with the European Union, but because we are still the only democratic country in this area. We are the only one. Among Muslim countries. Of course, Israel, no problem. We recognize Israel. And Ben-Gurion, who was the founder of the Israel, he studied law in Istanbul, yeah, in 1910. We know the Jewish, they know us. There is no war in the history, never, between Israelis and the Turks. Between the Arabs, yes. Between the Arabs and Israelis, between the Palestinians, yes. Between the Iranians, yes. But not with the Turks. This is our strength. Putting into the framework, the Israelis will continue to consider Turkey as a friend, not as an enemy. And this is good for America and for Turkey. Thank you very much. 8 o'clock. I saw the clock. On time.
Thank you, and I really want to thank all our panelists. I think it really was quite an experience to listen to your presentations and to your analysis. Maybe just a few words at the end. I hope that this war will find a very quick end. I do not see any solution that should come after 3 months, after 6 months. I guess I know also a little bit the situation at the other side, and my analysis is that it certainly will not make sense to go into a bigger crisis that should last a longer time. So far, what I see is time has come to act, not by armament, but by concepts and by diplomatic steps. That's what I see, and it will be in favor for everybody. Sometimes it looks so that the end of diplomacy has come, but in a situation where there cannot be a real, reasonable military solution, diplomacy has to come. And I think we are not very far away from this point. In this sense, thank you very much for your interest. Please give a big hand to our panelists. Thank you so much, everybody, not only for coming, for being here, for making your analysis. Thank you so much, and hope to see you sometime soon again.